An officer performed a search of the defendant and found an unholstered pistol in his pocket.
What? They just start searching?
Located in the hotel lobby, only in underwear for a brief time, but advised he heard a firearm being racked, chambering around. The defendant pulled away from the deputy.
Detain him for what purpose?
What you just witnessed was the breaking point for Juan Watson. A simple call for help spiraled into a police search so strange, it left the judge visibly stunned. But the real question is, what was Juan actually hiding? This is the state of Texas versus Juan Watson. At first glance, it looks like a routine evading arrest case. But beneath the surface lies a bizarre hotel encounter that raises more questions than answers. Juan himself dialed 911, claiming he was in danger. Yet when officers arrived, they found him standing in the hotel lobby, half-dressed, pointing the finger at a man named Chaz Burke. As the investigation unfolded, timelines shifted, stories changed, and a weapon surfaced where no one expected it. With up to a year in jail and a permanent criminal record on the line, every detail suddenly mattered. If you want to understand why stories collapse under pressure and how the courtroom exposes the truth, hit subscribe. Now, let's rewind to day one inside this Harris County courtroom.
Juan Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Watson, you're charged with evading arrest or detention. You're facing up to a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you, sir. As you can see, your lawyer is here with you on Zoom now, so you're not alone. Okay.
Yes, Judge. On December 25th, 2024, officers arrived at a hotel in Harris County, Texas in response to a burglary of a habitation report. The defendant had made the call and was waiting in the hotel lobby. One moment, Your Honor, let me double check.
The defendant made the call.
As well, I'm going to read the DM to see if maybe there's a typo in our summary.
Actually, you see the one time.
I believe he did make the call,
Yes,
Your
Judge.
Honor.
Yes, Judge. So the defendant had made the call, was waiting in the hotel lobby. The defendant advised he had a weapon and ID in his backpack. The police then escorted the defendant to a hotel room to retrieve his belongings and then off the property, where it was determined there was no weapon in his backpack. An officer performed a search of the defendant and found an unholstered pistol in his pocket.
What? They just start searching? What's he doing wrong?
Allow me to read the full DIMS, Your Honor, because
So,
Your Honor, if we could have a moment so I could read this, because it seems like there's a lot more information that
Just read the DIMS. That's all I want to know.
the entire DIMS, Your Honor. Yes, Judge. So the officer dispatched to a burglary of a habitation, later turned to an evading call for service at a hotel known as The Element. Upon arrival, the officer made contact with the defendant. The defendant was observed behind the front desk area and did not at first advise he was the caller. The defendant appeared in a nervous state of mind and at first was not forthcoming with information for the investigation. The defendant later advised he obtained a room with another person who he advised he did not know and was only known as Chaz Burke. And the defendant advised he had traveled to the room with Chaz, and upon entering into the room, there was a third male in the room already, and the defendant advised he left the area out of fear of another unknown male. The defendant advised the third male was invited to the room by Chaz, and upon briefly speaking with the front desk employee of the business, advised the defendant prior to arrival was located in the hotel lobby, only in underwear for a brief time, but advised he heard a firearm being racked, chambering around, but did not observe this action and only heard it. The employee then advised an unknown female traveled to the hotel, brought the clothing the defendant was observed wearing on scene, which was the sweats and bottoms. The defendant advised the handgun was of his when asked was located in his black backpack. He was observed to have on his person. The backpack was temporarily taken possession of by the officer for safety due to the defendant advising a firearm was located inside the backpack. The defendant on scene had advised and given consent that the handgun could be obtained from the backpack and checked in TCIC, and also advised his ID was also in the backpack and could be obtained on scene by law enforcement. The room the defendant and Chaz had booked, which was number 424, was checked for Chaz or other unknown suspects with negative results, and none of the other suspects were spoken to during the investigation. The defendant advised he was traveling to the secured room in order to obtain any of his belongings in the room due to the defendant was to be criminally trespassed from the business. and escorted off the business. The defendant at this point began to walk away from the deputy and continued to attempt to walk away from the deputy, but ultimately the officer escorted to the room without incident. Once the defendant was located back downstairs outside of the business, he obtained his driver's license from his backpack, and as he was conducting an NCIC check on the defendant, one of the other deputies on scene advised the handgun was not located inside the backpack as stated. The defendant was patted down for weapons on scene, and the deputy discovered a black Springfield handgun located in the defendant's pant pocket without any type of holster for the handgun. The handgun was temporarily taken by the officer for safety. At this point, another deputy arrived on scene to detain the defendant, and the defendant was observed to be in a highly nervous state of mind, and the defendant pulled away from the deputy.
Detain him for what purpose? What's he doing wrong?
So he was being criminally trespassed, and then he had previously...
Yeah, but you give him notice and then you get him to leave.
He told the officers that there was a weapon, and the employee told them that there was a weapon, so they were patting him down because they had those facts that there was a weapon, because they didn't find it in the backpack, but he had just told them that there was a weapon somewhere. So they patted him down for safety, and that's where they found the handgun.
Okay.
I think, Judge, like you said, they have to give him some kind of notice that he needs to leave the premises. Just them suspecting that this might be a criminal trespass.
Well, hold on. I mean, but this is an evading. So at some point, he allegedly must take off.
And as it continues, so once they attempt to detain the defendant for officer safety due to having the handgun without declaring it, the defendant was in a nervous state, and he began to pull away from the deputy and began to flee the scene and evade deputies on the scene. So all deputies were in full issued uniform, and the defendant was given verbal commands to stop and refused all commands given to stop and continued to evade, which he was then pursued off the hotel property and onto an apartment complex. The officer continued to pursue until he lost visual sight of the defendant, and the defendant was then later positively identified on scene from his driver's license, the Illinois driver's license. So after they attempted to detain him, following that, that's when he ran from the officers.
Matt, do you have anything?
Well, I don't really understand why they were trying to detain him.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think that what they were trying to do is perhaps they believe something nefarious, right? So they're trying to just trespass him out, which I think is well within their right. And had that just happened, and, you know, I think it would have been just nothing else would have transpired. But the fact that due to him leaving, they're unable to perform the trespass, right? And I think that's you know, it's problematic.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Watson, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with your case. I'm not going to put any conditions on your bond. Just be careful. You know, you get into a pissing match with people. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've got a lawyer. Because you have a lawyer, I will waive your appearance. You don't have to waste your time coming to court, but just stay in touch with Mr. Horak and he'll tell you when you have to come back.
Okay.
I know that you live in Ohio?
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to waive your appearance. You don't have to come back. At some point, if you have to come back, Mr. Horak will let you know, and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Okay.
So for now, I'll just have you sign a reset with Victoria, and then we'll just get you out of here.
Okay. Thank you.
Judge, how's April 1st through the 3rd?
April 1st through the 3rd.
The second would be great, Victoria.
Got it.
It's yours.
Thank you so much,
Okay, man.
Judge. May I be excused?
You got it. Have fun.
The decision is in. The judge found probable cause to move the case forward. But despite that, Juan Watson walked free, no bond conditions, just a citation and a ticket back to Ohio. So here's the question for you. If you're the one who calls 911 for help and police show up to investigate, is running ever justified? Drop your opinion in the comments. Team Watson or Team State? If this case made you think, hit like, and share it with anyone who can't get enough courtroom drama.